Welcome to the New Hampshire Journal podcast. I'm your host, Michael Graham, managing editor at NHJournal.com. This podcast made possible by our good friends at Perfect Smiles of Nashua. More about them coming up. And it is great to welcome for the first time in 2026, and given her political trajectory, perhaps the last, Governor Kelly Ayotte. I'm kidding. I kid because I love
All right,
Governor.
Michael. Happy New
You're
Year.
doing it.
Great to
Well,
be
no,
with
it's been great. And so that's really the first thing I wanted to ask you is it's been a year. You've been in the corner office. You've had some slings and some arrows. Are you wishing you had tanked the race and let Joyce Craig have the whole thing and just wash your hands of it after a year of doing this?
you. No, I'm actually really happy that we don't have an income tax because that's what we would have had. So I'm good. Yeah, no,
Do you like the job?
I love the job. I'm glad to have the opportunity to serve people.
Well, serving people is great, but then there's the actual job of being governor. And so the question is, how have you found the, kind of the it's all fun to, you get to wave and you cut ribbons and all that stuff, but the actual showing up at the office, going down to the state house, has that been what you expected? Anything kind of surprising?
It actually has. I've really enjoyed it. And I think one of the things is that when you first become governor, when I think about where I was last year at this time, because you get elected, you've got to put together a 2-year budget.
Right.
And you've got to obviously meeting well the department heads, and you don't get to pick your whole team when you're a governor in New Hampshire, right? You got to meet the
Right.
team that's there. And then also you've got the executive council, you got all the legislators. So, it's a fast paced job, especially when you first get in,
Mhm.
getting to know all the players, putting the budget together. And so that was a pretty fast year, exciting, a lot going on.
So obviously there were a lot of things in the budget that you really wanted and you fought for and you got. A year in, what's the thing that you're like, yes, that was a good call?
Permitting. So
What do you mean?
I mean, I put the 60-day permitting in the budget and the legislature adopted it. And yet,
60-day permitting for
so for housing, for
housing.
projects, not just housing, but for
Oh, okay.
projects with the state, because that's so important, but focusing on our housing issue. And we needed a process. On the campaign trail, I heard so much about things being hung up, things that were hanging out at the state for over a
Right.
year. And now we have a 60-day process. So that was great to get that done. Get the cell phones out of the schools. That was also in my budget. And there was separate legislation that went forward on that, but I was glad that got done. So there were a lot of good things in it.
And the one thing, if you could go back and talk to yourself and say, maybe not so much.
Well, I think that we are in a good place, right? So there's not one thing I would say, well, let's go back and not so
Yep.
much. I mean, there were things in the budget that I disagreed with at the
Sure.
time, and I still disagree with to some extent, but we're managing it and it's going well.
So even the budget forecasts, because you look at where the revenues are, it's a tough time, belt tightening time.
I said that in my inaugural. I said that in my budget address. I was pretty clear with people that we were going to have to recalibrate spending in state government because let's face it, we had over $1 billion of federal money. I think it was about 2 billion if you put the CARES Act and ARPA
Right.
together. And so we had to bring it down and recalibrate. And I think the good news is that we've done that. And right now, revenues are slightly above. There was obviously, we're going to continue to monitor, but we're in a good position. And, I look at our neighbors, Michael,
Mhm.
and just today I read an article about how Rhode Island is looking at imposing
That's
a
right.
millionaire's tax. And the reason they are is because they relied on all the federal money and now they have a budget gap. So rather than looking to figure out where we can recalibrate spending, how can we do things differently, they're turning to tax people right away. That's not what we've done. That's not what we're going to do. We've, kept the no taxes. And so to me, that's really important. In
Right.
tough times, you want conservative leadership to manage the fiscal state, especially because that way you don't pass it on to families. And I think that's what we've done and we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, it's fascinating how many times you look at a map on television during the news and they'll say, look what's happening around the country. And every state is one color except New Hampshire. And one of those
Right.
is proposing tax increases or
Right.
passing tax increases. Maine's budget had a series of tax increases. Um,
I mean, another one, for example, if you put a map of New England up, not just the taxes, obviously no
right,
income tax, no sales tax, uh, lowest business taxes in the region, no investment taxes.
Right.
That's a contrast. But look at the immigration issue.
Right.
We're the only no sanctuary state in New England.
No, absolutely. And well, we'll get that in a second. But first, about the tax revenue part, the Democrats released their more money in your pockets plan. It didn't have a price tag, but, it's going to be something. They insist they don't have any tax increases to pay for it. But their argument is that the state is too focused on, green eye shade math and not enough on quality of life. Are you and Republicans asking Granite Staters to have a less good quality of life in order to meet these goals? Look, everyone would love to have no taxes and all the stuff. Are you in the right balance when it comes to
We are
balancing taxes
we
and
are in the
stuff?
right balance. And let me just tell you, we were ranked the healthiest state in the
That's
nation
right.
this year since I've been governor. We are still a great state, child well-being, number one. You go through those metrics on quality of life, and New Hampshire is doing very, very well. And here's the thing, part of our quality of life is letting people and families, especially in tougher economic times, hold their money, spend it on their priorities, help them at their family level. That is part of our quality of life, and freedom is part of our quality of life. I mean, the freedom, the economic freedom, the freedom in New Hampshire, with your constitutional rights, all
Right.
those things. So we have a wonderful quality of life here.
So, quality of life means cleaning up after yourself as you go. And some people say if you buy paint, it has to be cleaned up, it has to be deposed. And so there is some people would argue a disposal fee. And there are a lot of industries that have that. My dad made us, change our own oil when I was a kid to teach me,
Yes.
character, and also to how idiotic it is that I could have paid a guy $9 and he would have done this like whatever. And so we had to go do the oil, and we had to pay a fee because we were disposing
Or when
oil.
you, like, give you an example, when you go to our local landfill,
Mhm.
there's things I have to pay a fee on to dispose. That's already built in the system. And that's already set up often by the industry itself or
Right.
locally. That on certain products you have electronics,
That's
how
right.
you handle things like that.
But
And
they don't have a tax that was passed by the
yeah,
House
and
that's
guess
on its
what?
way. So what is Governor Kelly Ayotte going to do if that makes it to
I
her
have a pretty
desk?
simple, I have a pretty simple principle.
Okay.
No sales tax, not now, not ever.
That
And
seems fuzzy to me.
this
Can you
bill,
be clear on
there's
this?
no fuzzy math there. I think that this bill looks like a sales tax to me. It
Right.
like acts like a sales tax on paint.
Okay.
It seems like a sales tax. It's sort of like if you walk like a duck, you quack
Sure.
like a duck, you are a duck. So from my perspective, I don't think the duck's going to make it.
So, so the municipalities say, look, you're just sticking us with a bill. This is another downshift. It's one of the favorite criticisms from Democrats. The Republicans, Governor Ayotte, are downshifting costs onto us, and then we don't have the revenue. Is this a
I mean,
downshifting
that is
cost?
just like so not true. In fact, I had the chance, you probably saw Senator Abbas's speech on the Senate floor about this.
Right.
He is a local business guy who actually has figured out a system to make money himself off recycling this, right?
Mhm.
So there's a private sector solution to this,
Right.
and we don't need, a government solution to this. We don't need, by the way, the corporation that they set up to do this has made a lot of money. Like, I don't know why we have to subsidize that.
Sure.
But
So speaking of municipal issues, as you know, there's a big fight over zoning. You just received an award from the New Hampshire Builders Association, Home Builders Association, and it is without a doubt. We just did a poll. Top concern is groceries. Number two, right behind it,
yeah.
housing. So where do you think the balance is between local control and the state saying we have to create zoning space for a growing housing industry? And what would you say to people who say, what happened to the conservative embrace of, individual self-reliance and local control?
Well, first of all, let me just say I was honored to receive that national award on housing, but it's not my award. I'm honored to receive it, but the legislature did great work
Okay.
in this last session, and I think that we've struck a proper balance. That local voice is still so strong, and we believe in that local voice. But there were areas where we needed to address to make sure there's enough housing supply in the state.
Mhm.
Like, for example, ADUs. You want to talk about a pro-family bill?
Right.
ADUs. I was with a group of builders yesterday, and they said we're working on them. I said, who's building the ADUs? And you know what they told me?
Oh,
Families.
yeah.
So
By the way,
families.
for people who don't know, ADUs are accessory dwelling units.
That's right.
basically what we'd have called as when I was younger a mother-in-law suite. Like there
Well,
was
and
this
they're building them for
additional,
the mother-in-laws and for the in-laws, and they're building for the children too. And it's happening. It's a great
right?
thing. You think about all the commercial space that's been out, like people need less office space
Mhm.
after COVID, especially. More people are doing work from home, all
Right,
that. And so we had commercial space sitting there. So let's make sure that that can be converted to residential if the owners choose to do it.
right.
And so some of these things just needed to be
Mhm.
addressed. And
But
I'm
you
glad that
mentioned, for
they were.
example, that you mentioned really interesting fight. You've got space that was workspace, and now the demand for residential space is higher.
Right.
But these communities have built themselves around the idea that the residents are in one zone, the work is in another.
It
Once
doesn't.
again, they're complaining that the state is stepping in and it's changing the balance of the community, and the community doesn't necessarily agree. What do you say when you hear these concerns?
Well, first of all, I'm really respectful that people should have a local voice, and they still do. The local planning boards are there, the local zoning boards, they still have a significant say. The legislation we did was targeted, it was smart, it creates a partnership, and that's how it should be. But I will tell you this, I mean, I would say local communities, if we don't have the housing, then eventually you don't have the residents,
Right.
whether they're seniors or whether they're young families. The way New Hampshire stays vibrant is by having, let's keep our people here. Let's
Mhm.
keep the people that grow up here,
Right.
and let's keep the people and let them age here. And so it's really about the people of New Hampshire. Ultimately, we represent the people of New Hampshire, all of us at the state level, at the local level. And this is about making sure that the people of New Hampshire have opportunities
Right.
to stay in the state that we love.
Well, you mentioned the immigration thing. I was so stunned. There's a small little paper down in Massachusetts, Boston. I forget what they're called. They had a piece about, oh my gosh, look at all these towns in New Hampshire that are cooperating with ICE, and they're entering the 287 whatever they are agreements
Yep,
to get
287.
training and to partner, and they're horrified. And the other states in New England are all horrified. Why aren't more people horrified in New Hampshire, Governor Ayotte?
Well, because I think the New Hampshire way has been that we work together.
Right.
Like we're ranked the safest state in the nation, Michael, and we have been consistently. And so that partnership, if you go and ask a local agency or our state police
Right.
that has signed up for the 287G, we view it as a partnership. So if there's an issue, why can't we work with federal
Right.
authorities? Just like why can't the federal authorities work with the local authorities? And that's why things are going well in New Hampshire.
So what do you think then
Also,
when you
why at our northern border, like people know, don't come over our northern border. And if
right.
you do, we're going to catch you.
So why do you think what has happened in places, and obviously everyone's focused right now in Minnesota, but there are other places around the country too where there's just it's a battle between people trying to enforce a law that polls show Americans want enforced, and yet you have these horrible scenes. Is that a policy problem? Is a political problem? Is it a leadership problem? I can't. I'm not saying this to suck up to you, but I just can't imagine that happening in New Hampshire. I cannot imagine the scenes that we see in Minneapolis,
Because
in
that's
Manchester, and Nashville. I
right.
cannot imagine it.
Because that's not New Hampshire. First of all, New Hampshire, sure, we respect people's right to protest. Of course, that's so fundamental.
Mhm.
But we respect also law enforcement and their jobs too. And I think that there's that level of mutual respect. And also, we're pretty clear. We're going to actually enforce the laws. We're not going to just say we're going to look the other way. When you
Right.
start saying we're going to look the other way on laws, that's where issues are created, problems are created. And I think that's the difference between New Hampshire and these other states. But also at the local level, listen, law enforcement respect local protesters, but they need to respect law enforcement
Right.
too. It's a mutual respect.
So, if you got a call from Governor Tim Walz and he said, "Hey, Governor, great to talk to you. I just need a little advice. I didn't listen to you when Kamala called. You told me not to pick up the phone. I didn't listen. I made a mistake. I'm coming back. What advice would you have for Governor Walz today?"
I mean, it would be a really long phone call. But first of all, you got to fix. There's so many structural problems.
Mhm.
I mean, look at Minnesota versus New Hampshire.
Right.
I mean, just their taxes versus ours.
Sure.
Obviously, with all the allegations of fraud, throwing more money at something doesn't make it
Right.
better. And to me, if you look at those allegations of fraud, if you're a leader, you better prioritize those and make sure that
Mhm.
taxpayer dollars are being respected and spent well, because it's not your money.
Right,
And so I would say that. And then also this whole idea, in terms of the immigration, the law
right,
enforcement piece. When you're governor, I mean, you're supposed to enforce the laws.
right.
So I feel for the law enforcement in that state. I feel for, those who are working in law enforcement, because you have to have someone who's going to work with them and support what they're doing. They have very hard jobs. So if I could say something to him, it's like, these people that go to work every day to keep us safe, like, support them,
Right.
let them do their jobs. Don't, don't get out there and, grandstand. Stop grandstanding and start just protecting the people.
Particularly when the grandstanding gets people hurt, because the obvious solution is to have the local police work with the feds. The feds say, hey, look, here are the 50 people
Correct.
we're looking for. Can you help us find them? We'll come
Right.
to the jail. They'll have to
Yeah.
have, no, won't be
And
roaming through the
that's
neighborhoods,
what would
won't need flak
happen.
jackets, but
Right.
whatever. I
That's
want you
what would
to,
happen in New Hampshire, right?
right. Oh, absolutely what would happen. So we're going to finish up because New Hampshire Journal is the political junkies' one and only news outlet. I have some more advice I'd like to solicit. What advice would you give Cindy Warmington right now?
Advice for Cindy Wormington.
Mhm.
I don't know. I really can't undo her history. But
Well, let me
perhaps,
ask it another way. Why do you think it is that there are about 712 people running for the Democratic nomination in the first congressional district, and there's nobody running for the Democratic nomination in the governor's race? Why,
yeah,
why do you
well,
think that is?
I can't pretend to understand what's going on in the Democratic Party.
Right,
I would just say this. I think that Republicans in Concord, we've worked really hard together. We have a list of accomplishments to deliver for the people of New Hampshire. That if you look at our fiscal structure in New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Advantage, the idea that we're not going to be like everyone else in the region, which I ran on,
right.
I think that the people appreciate that. And to me, the results speaks for themselves. And so when you're working together, delivering results, maybe I would say that that's a big reason.
Well, I just have to say that New Hampshire, if Governor Ayotte has time to talk to me, she's not doing her job. So let me get her get back to let her get back to work. And thank you so much for talking to the readers and listeners of New Hampshire Journal. We really do appreciate it, Governor.
Well, I appreciate it. Hello to your listeners and readers, and thanks so much, Michael. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks so much to Governor Kelly Ayotte for joining us here on the New Hampshire Journal podcast. I really appreciate it. And it's a podcast that is only possible due to two people. One is you, those of you who subscribe to New Hampshire Journal. You $4.99 a month. It makes a huge difference, and the number keeps growing. And thank you so much. We had the best year ever in 2025, and we're looking forward to doing even better in 2026 because we have a lot of news to cover, a lot of stuff going on. And the other way we can do this podcast is thanks to our friends at Perfect Smiles of Nashua. Now, whether you're talking about Dr. Bruce, who started it, or you're talking about Dr. Sine, Dr. Tam, his partners who are there, you are going to get amazing dental care. And I know because that's where I go. And I've been going to Dr. Bruce for years. And Perfect Smiles in Nashua has taken great care of me. It took care of me when I was driving up from New Hampshire, Massachusetts. Now it takes me because I got to drive down. But either way, once the drive is over, I have great service. People actually care about what I'm doing. And they really are focused on having the latest technology, the latest ways to take care of your teeth. It's not just, well, whatever, it's good enough. No, they're always pushing the envelope to do better and better. It's one of the things I love about the Perfect Smiles operation. So if you have a dentist who's meh, if you're new to the area, don't have a dentist, or if you just have a lingering issue, you want to have that perfect smile and you looked into the past and maybe the price wasn't quite right, or you just weren't comfortable with what you were going to get versus the commitment, sit down and talk to the Perfect Smiles team. They'll let you know what they can do, what the outcome is going to be. They're going to give you information you can trust. I know because I trusted them with my smile. That's Perfect Smiles online at perfectsmiles.com.